I think I could post this on Unfiltered Child. That might be the channel. Other channel, I don't know. I'll decide. I want to bring y'all into my world as I learn more about myself. I think this has been something that has been embedded in my soul and my spirit since I was young, which is building for the long haul. Like, once I see all this instant gratification or even the whole systematic thing around, and this is not knocking or devaluing people who go through the process of 9 to 5 or whatever it is to, get to where they're going. It's more so my awareness around how a lot of these things keep people in the loop, which we probably already know of survival. Keep them in poverty, keep them never really going through the unfamiliar pattern. Get some music. I had to walk through some shit. I had to walk through something. That was hilarious. And also, I had to walk through something. Not only the music, but a guy was letting another guy have it, cussing him out. Then the guy responded, just walked away. It was sorry that you have a black, you're right, you're sorry that you have a black cloud over your head every day. Bro, that's real. This kind of correlates with what I'm saying. Is that some people don't see beyond the black cloud and actually realize that the sun always shines. So it's their circumstances are always their vocal point or their focus, even when they don't want it to be. So it's wow. The reason I say that is because I'm so grateful what I don't know if YouTube flags for the ice cream truck music. You just never know these days. But anywho, what I'm recognizing and building, when you go through entrepreneurship and so forth, I was telling someone, I've been doing this shit not knowing, I don't know every detail, every hitch to it, everything. I'm learning as I go. This is what has allowed me to have tremendous grace when I didn't have it, not only just for myself, but other people. Some people, for one, don't know how to apologize. Some people, too, don't know how to handle stressful situations. So they avoid conflict resolution. 3, some people don't know how to pretty much see a way out. Music start playing. And this is where you and I come in, or those who will probably come on this journey. Entrepreneurship is such a spiritual thing. It's such an enlightening, insightful, challenging, emotional, gut-wrenching thing that a lot of people, they're really not ready for. A lot of people are not ready to be judged through that shit. A lot of people are not ready to be attacked, ridiculed, possibly embarrassed. And not so much embarrassing you have to feel shame and guilt, but sometimes the feeling around you even knowing people or being even connected to certain things, because sometimes you place yourself in relationships, connections, business, and so forth, because you're going to have not so much ups and downs. You're going to try to find a balance between all of it. Today, somebody saying they were doing landscaping for 12 years. And this is a theme where I keep hearing people say, an elderly guy I knew, he said he was at this one position the last probably 13, 14, 15 years. And so my thing is, again, it's not knocking anyone. It's not attacking them. It's just what I know that there's not so much I'm not capable of doing or accomplishing. I don't see the accomplishment in destroying my body and beating myself up, mentally, emotionally, discarding, my well-being basically just to make a fucking dollar. Because a lot of these positions, again, when I'm talking to the men, but I'm learning from them. I'm learning something to where I realize, yeah, that ain't for me. No judgment, that ain't for me. No. And simply because, I've been in those positions. I've been landscaping before. Going. You're more focused on a dollar rather than your well-being. So yeah, at the time, making a couple $100s a day, some people don't even make that. Then having to grow out of what's familiar, which is not just a slave mentality, but a mentality of feeling like that's all there is. This is how I feel a lot of people become a slave to their own mental baggage, or what do they call it? Arrested development. They become almost chained and bound to what's familiar, and this is what keeps them pretty much feeling like they're stuck. And again, it's not to knock anyone. It's not to keep them from finding out that what's for them is for them. A lot of my messages, I realize, is timeless, and not even just timeless, it's more so beyond what we're moving into, which is a world that's going to be more self-sufficient. People realizing a lot of our elders did not go towards what they loved. They made excuses. Because the first thing they'll say, well, I had to do what I had to do to make da-da-da-da-da. Yes, you did. But a lot of, again, this path has a lot to do with what a lot of people run from. Majority, if you look at the collective aspect, and you're seeing it purge so much now with so many people, they're running from themselves. I talked to three people today? No, 2 people today in regards to one guy, he looks very young. He's from, I forgot what part of Africa he was from. But basically he's like, hey man, how you doing? He asked me, and I was like, oh, I'm great, Because you can tell in someone's demeanor that they're getting rest. And you can easily tell, again, that a collective or people who have prioritized hustle culture, which is not in alignment for what actually things are supposed to be, how things are supposed to be stable and structured. So he's 29, and then, I was like, hey, how are you, bro? I got my shades on, but I could still see the redness in his eyes, because you really don't know people's situation. You don't know if they're living in a car. You don't know how they're trying to make ends meet. And a lot of these transits are affecting so much of what we value, to where it's divine intervention, to where you're seeing the deception and, we can lower the house payment and all this other stuff and all like this and make things affordable. At the same moment, you still got people where the positionings of certain things, it's not realistic. It's not realistic at all. So a lot of people are now trying to narrow things down to realize what type of living situation is sustainable. Not just for them, but for their children. So talking to him, he has no kids, but I have to remind people and plant seeds bro, he was like, yeah, man, I'm working more than ever now. I'm like, and he's a library security officer. Like, he's not really having to do a lot. It really, until like it really gets out of hand, where really he can break up a fight, but he also like can call the police, so it's not really extreme. Now, I don't know the details of his living situation and everything else, but I'm very much aware that, again, you can see that someone is like super drained, tired. And it may sound wild, but the more and more that I keep convincing myself, but I realize like I I'm learning to again be more the observer rather than the reactor, because the reactor has to almost absorb like what is receiving in a way. Is that what I'm trying to get to? Yeah, to react, or rather than respond. Or you can respond, react, but more so in an unhealthy or healthy way. So a lot of these things are teaching me like exactly what I'm going towards. Exactly why I told him, I was like, yeah, I've been doing this entrepreneur thing for 10 years. And yes, I've had positions here and there. Every time I try to balance it out, it just didn't fall through. And yes, I had to go through the shelter experience, but that's a whole nother scenario to why things happen that way. But just still having to go through the integrity, the spiritual maturity, the emotional maturity. I had to, again, a lot of these lessons were for me to learn and to alchemize and so forth. And then again, the approach of doing things that nobody in my family, the family that I came through, have done. Of course, I see my mom go through countless of jobs. I used to want to see one of my cousins when he was alive. I'm like, how y'all getting these positions? What am I not doing? If you know, you know. What am I not doing? Y'all be having charges and something, this and that. And I'll be like, but what it is it's never any consistency. Like, they'll be consistent, I will say consistent for months and so forth. But what I recognize coming from the foundations of my grandmother having to be at a position for so long, because someone's irresponsibility to not want to show up for themselves and their well-being, and how that trickled down to how my mom and my aunt or people didn't want to show up for their own children. It's like, you had these fucking kids. That's not my grandma's responsibility. So that's a whole nother cycle in itself, to be able to be aware and to tell myself like, oh, I'm not at all allowing this to happen, because of what I, through learned experience, through lived experience as well, to where even if it doesn't make sense to no one else right now, and again, it's not going to make sense to your spouse, your husband, wife, whatever you want to use, family. It's not going to make sense to a lot of people why it is that you're so persistent. But the beauty of it is, the vision was never given to them. It wasn't a three-way call. And this is where integrity you embody, and then the fakeness you begin to see exposed in everybody else who pretends to love or like what they do. Now, again, it's so much of a spiritual thing because of how much mental stress that you could absorb, or absorb others people's like emotional turmoil, worries and concerns about, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to make this happen? This is the depths of going down a path least traveled that most people aren't. It's not that they're not equipped. They're not as ready as they say they are. Because they'll immediately go back to what's familiar. I've had situations where I realized, like, how can someone be upset at me for their role in their decision making, when I've been consistent with being myself, been persistent with being doing what I love to do. And if I'm seeing results and I see these results are paying off, then I'm telling myself, for one, you're upset at me, and I spoke about this on another video, how we have to realize that a lot of people never lived out their childhood experience, or they never were encouraged to go after things or still embrace it, or had that support system, even when they did get into a 9 to 5 or this and this and this and that. Most of the time, it's people trying to follow a trend, or because they're still is money focused, but it's never anything dealing with spiritual well-being, emotional well-being, physical well-being. You follow me here now? This is why I had to realize, like, a lot of those positions, through so much lived experiences, no amount of money would have been enough. Did you hear what I'm saying? No amount of money. That's like someone hitting a jackpot, but you don't have the emotional capacity or lived experience to know how to even manage that, or look at the long haul, the bigger picture. And there's a study to where, even again, like, you can research this, like, highly intelligent people are not just extroverted, but they're introverted, because most of the time it's not so much they're not present, but they're more observant to actually see what to learn and to actually focus on the bigger picture. That's one of the biggest things that, as a visionary, as a person who's on a journey of entrepreneurship, because people keep encouraging people, entrepreneur this, entrepreneur that. But again, I give y'all the different perspectives and levels to that shit. Like I said, it's going to be so loud. The distractions are going to be so loud. The support that is going to be mirrored, because everyone lived experiences are the same. But if you didn't have a supportive cast, then be ready to not have that support for a duration until you actually do the inner work to prepare for that said support. Because it's going to take people who will actually watch, who probably is familiar to your journey, to actually, they'll sit and watch. And this while I'm saying this, but you have people who will actually sit. Some will sit and watch and judge. Some people close to you will judge, but you actually have people who have seen you and witnessed you go through the highs and lows, to where this is where, again, you have like-mindedness. You have people who have experienced something similar, if not the same, but not so much the same, but knowing what it is to go 5, 10, 15 years of being in a cycle where, and not a loop, a cycle of the financial highs and lows, or, like currency, money comes in, it goes out. Going through the people who almost seemed like a sense of betrayal, but now they realize, like, this was something that they just wasn't ready for, or they, didn't have the courage and confidence, as they said in the beginning, that they would have, and so forth. And they're not ready to go through, if you want to use the term, suffering, or basically the lessons to actually get to the outcome. And they didn't believe, but they'll want the fruits of, or they'll want to celebrate your rewards or the fruits of your labor. And it doesn't happen that way. Me specifically, I know about let me tell you something. On my journey in the last 8-9 years, countless of people that I ain't gonna say countless, but a lot of people, family, friends, what you call friends, so many things cut off, so many things I had to go through, navigate emotionally, but also learn how to, again, become more of the observer than absorber of things. Because, again, what they will have you doing is looping through someone else emotional pain, taking on the fact of what they're going through and what they're stressed about and things, and this and this and this, and them not seeing the actual bigger picture. That's why, a lot of people are afraid to go at things alone.
And that's one of the things that revealed to me too of codependency and people wanting to always be around people. That shows you real integrity of what leadership actually is too. The authentic aspect of, it's not to say you cannot be around people, but it's more so also, the leadership aspect of knowing how to surrender and be a leader in your own life instead of like, going down that path of what a follower was, following everybody else into a path of self destruction. And um, I'm grateful for all this, like I said, to continue on it, is that I've noticed that, again, the grace I've had to have because so many people who did not believe. And it's okay for them not to have believed. That's where the road or the challenges along the journey can become very, very burdensome if you allow yourself to take on what everyone else feel like you should do and how you should do and so forth. And most of the time, like again, like I said in the beginning of things, this is where it gets louder, or a lot of things, like it's so many distractions. But as you stay persistent along the path, your persistency starts to reveal um, your clientele, your supporters, the naysayers, the haters, and a lot of these things. Just truly, again, it'll reveal different layers of what people are internally dealing with, what they feel you should deal with, what they feel, these projections and so forth. Like I went through countless of things to even remember like what I won't go through no more. For one, entrepreneur is definitely going to teach you about self-worth, self-value, self-care. That's not talked about a lot when it is promoted. Self-care should be a priority, number one priority if I ever get into classes or lessons and telling people that's going down this path. And talking about it, like me talking about it through it, I am successful in what I'm doing. My success is how I maintain my fucking peace and sanity through it all, even when the fact of, again, no one believes, no one sees the bigger picture. But yet, I'm telling you, everyone's journey is not like mine, but it's so much of like, I can write books about the fact of the shit that I experience with people, the jealousy, the envy, the insecurities, the backhanded compliments. The one of the things I talked about is, again, how people haven't lived out their childhood experiences, and they don't know it sometimes. Like, see you actually living out your gifts. Like, that's why I say my artistry and how I'm alchemizing, transforming through all of it, how now I prioritize it more than anything. And most importantly, my rest. Last night, sometimes I'll stay up to like, and this is just a nervous system thing, but feeling like I have to stay up at 11, 12, 1 o'clock. Like I'm going to not so much miss out on something. It's just something that I feed myself and I don't have to. But I believe last night I stayed in, like, and rested earlier than usual, like 10:30. And I know I can go to bed a little bit earlier, but I also realized like a lot of these transits play a major role into what it is revealing about myself. Was it's revealing about my experiences, my lived experiences, into what I'm blossoming into. Because the thing is like once you see it in your dream state, you know that certain status or that certain level or that higher perspective, or your, if you want to call it your future self, higher self, whatever, it's already manifested. Like a lot of things I realized, like, we want to rush it, but I realized like, nah. Even when I thought I was supposed to receive something like 2 months, 2 years ago, I really, really to the depths see the bigger aspect of a lot of this, even through my living experience currently with people, their mindset again. you have to also see where you're at currently to actually pay attention to detail to what you're actually, the cycle that you're actually, the loop that you're actually breaking, or the cycle you're breaking, or even the whole turn of events or huge turning point that I'm already knowing that I'm in, that I know not just affects me. This is the self-righteousness, or the or even in people's unconscious awareness of, even what you don't do or not say still has an effect on everybody or everything. In some type of way, it's gonna ripple to somebody. You gotta realize everyone has their own mind, their own whatever it is, and so forth. Someone, for one, is always gonna feel like you either make the best decision, depending on the environment, the supportive cast. And that's the thing I've been learning through all of this. It's like the encouragement. Sometimes you're gonna learn that some people didn't get the support very young. They didn't get the encouragement. And then you can align or be in a relationship, or you can be whatever it is and with someone, and their mindset is more focused on the money rather than the actual well-being of it all. Because then when you get the money, you're gonna more splurge and be more external rather than internal, like finding a balance between, like, should I go do this for myself, or do I immediately go do this for everybody else and forget about myself? And this is why I prioritize. I have rest. Rest is becoming more and more of a priority, to where I don't give a fuck if I'm overbooked with whatever it is. No one or nothing is going to rush me into anything. It doesn't matter the price. No, it's not. Because you got people doing shit for little to nothing simply because they don't know their worth and value. And these transits are going to be telling, like, this Chiron and Taurus, like, we approach this in like 2 cycles, 2 weeks, if you want to call it that. But is it 2? Yeah. And then what? Chiron and Taurus. And then what you have, Jupiter within like another cycle is going to enter Leo. So a lot of things I know myself to have done the inner work, to where less is going to be more. And I can see how, like, from my perspective, to where I don't have to be somewhere at a longer amount of time, but still have a more impact. You see what I'm saying? Like, have much more of an impact than somebody who would have just come. And I say that simply because of the value that I know I hold, the substance, within myself, the spiritual currency, to where my showing up and then my seed planting is going to have a ripple effect on generations to come. So, and it's also the intention. And it makes me think about how people will show up at a club or an event and so forth, but really never show the appreciation, or really, it's such in a, like, self-righteous way, or this identity around more so, their ego being boosted, rather than actually maybe interacting or being supportive, the well-being around it all. Because again, it brings up the fact of, like, I don't look at it any different than someone who tours and plays so many different games here on in and here on out, and then has to fly to another thing. Like, they know they have to get their body mentally, emotionally, and so forth prepared for that. At the same time, every individual is uniquely different. But I still see that reflection no differently than someone who lives in a rural town or a small town, who only has this position or that position, so they have to work 10, 12 hours. No way. No way. Like I said, the 10 years of the entrepreneurship is not just the fact of, what you just see online. It's what you don't see. Entrepreneur, again, has a lot to do with spiritual well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, so forth. Because again, I can be presented with hundreds and thousands of dollars or so forth, whatever it is, just to be in a space, but yet who I am is beyond the money, It's more so of the fact of knowing the impact. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hear a lot of people talk about, and that's what I said years ago. Like, I've always called myself an empowering speaker. What I'm going to give, what I have to offer, what is being channeled through me is something that will live with you, not just the rest of your duration here in this world, but something that you can give to your children's children, something that they can pass down, because that's the importance of spiritual well-being. Something there is going to leave you with something with, it's almost like a thirst not no more type of something. Because you got to realize the world has been missing the well-being aspect of things. So I'm offering something that can't be measured in time. That's just me, because that's how I see my art. That's how I see my writings. That's how I see a lot of things that I've kept alive, I've watered, and that will continue to nurture, to weed out people who don't support it, and then open the door for those who are supportive of it in a genuine, in an integrative way, in an authentic way. Not for showboating, not for clout chasing and shit like that. No, it's to drop something in you that you know that, man, you'll never be the same. And that's simply because how much I've met myself this deep and will continue to meet myself deeper. And you encourage people to do the same thing. Instead of looking to a specific person, looking to a specific individual, only having these people to be inspired by. I don't know nothing about them. I share my lived experience from an authentic place where you can feel the depths of it. You can actually sense and see my progression, and and then not to feel shame and guilt from any layer of my life, any chapter of my life. Whatever comes up, I have to acknowledge it. I have to go through it. I'm not asking you to go through it with me. Because a lot of what I realize in whether support or non-support, it reflects, again, people's value system, their belief system, and so forth. Why they will or won't support. And this is where the grace comes in. Everything isn't for everybody. Like I said, along my journey, there's still so much more to expound on. There's still so much more that I haven't even revealed. But that's the patience even in entrepreneurship. It's like some seeds you plant, you have to be patient to wait to receive that fruit, because even in that duration, people won't be supportive. They'll actually keep, and again, you're not entitled to it, I get it, but they'll actually keep their fruits of their labor from you even while you're there. Because some shit is revealed to me even while you're there, and it goes back to a lot of where people didn't feel appreciated, seen when they were young. No one encouraged them to give and know that the giver has to receive. So I know what it is to be on that giver, and then I've noticed now how I become more magnetic in receiving. Because in that cycle, you got to realize so many people are so used to giving, and they're giving from an empty cup because they don't prioritize their well-being. Entrepreneurship does that too, because those who know, you can burn yourself out easily trying to hustle for $1. No. Sometimes things ain't even just about $1. It's about trade and bargaining. Oh no, it's not bargaining. Trade and bartering. Things where some people offer their service for this and this and this and that. Not that it's none of y'all business, but the other day when I went and found the canvas, something was telling me go down here. I had the idea of like painting it, posting it. But then again, I had just talked to one of my neighbors, and you can just tell, you can pick up on what people are going through. And I immediately felt my inner child, like the little boy that, we don't realize, like, we naturally engage or exchange energies with people and we either put up a wall or we want to be open, and we look at the adult aspect so much, don't even recognize we still little kids. We're still trying to operate and exchange or feel each other out. What do you do? What do you do? That's the thing about that's the thing about how so much we have gotten away from the inner child, or from the childlike aspect, the innocence, the imagination. Because we got so accustomed to, well, what do you do? Well, what do you do? That's why people will attack the fact that when I say I'm an artist, because they'll immediately have a mindset or place me in this box of, well, an artist doesn't have this or this, because you're basing it off an old narrative. You're basing it off a foundation of probably either lived experiences or something that was projected onto you or something that you received through television. But I'm not the same artist as anyone else. I'm uniquely me. Beautiful inside and out. Uniquely me. I'm not that artist that's like some people who just focus on a dollar, hustling. Again, burning themselves out, trying to still keep up. I seen it. I've also lived through it to where, again, I knew that I was not prioritizing my well-being, because it's like I know that experience of trying to do that shit just to what? No, now the progression or I realized in all of that, I had to go through that integrity of realizing seeing how people, depending on the support system or your surroundings, the insecurities around how people don't want to see you, knowing that you have a gift or knowing that you have something magical or that's very unique, but they'll pull their hand back, or they'll again reflects the fact of their childhood or something internally where they never had the opportunity to express and feel free or feel abundant in whatever it is, and so they automatically dissociate or disconnect. And again, some people will never say, but sometimes that's where jealousy or envy or whatever it is, insecurities that they're battling with, or even self-identity, low self-esteem, so many different things where it's a process you have to go through to get to where you are. With no longer surrounding yourself with people who don't speak healthy to themselves, or who are passive aggressive, who only speak healthily in a work environment, but then at home or with their kids, they're totally different. So yeah, it's like that journey. Again, I'm not that artist that is doing it for likes and clicks and shit. For what? Like I said, my neighbor, I just knew that we had an exchange one time. And something within me is like, share something with him that'll be lasting. And you got to realize, he didn't know I was coming with this. Because again, I had already put something on the canvas, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to da-da-da-da-da. But during that process, I said, you know what? I'm going to gift this to him. Because after our conversation, he liked graffiti. So I remember that. So sometimes you don't even realize, some people are listening. So I told you, some people are watching. At the same moment, you never know how they're going to come in, or something unexpected to where they want to pour into you. They want to support you. They want to gift you with things, because it's not so much that they not only feel you deserve it, it's because they've been in a deserving or receiving energy so much to where they met themselves deeper. So most of the time it's a divine intervention thing, or the divine knows that I'm going to place this on this person's heart, and you give anyway, and he didn't see this coming. And so when I actually introduced it to him, his reaction was priceless, because at first he didn't know. I had to let it sit out in the backyard to let the sun dry, because I just got finished with it. And I was like, I got something for you. You got something for me? What you got? Some people be skeptical, because you really don't know people. I have known people for years, because the day before when we talked, I showed him some of my art. And I was like, yeah, you never know who you're meeting, right? And he was like, whoa, he was just blown away. But I just knew from man to man, but little boy to little boy, that's still a way of the inner child's meshing or connecting, or, bringing life into someone. You know what I'm saying? So what I end up doing is when I went to get it from the backyard and bring it to him, he was like, yo, he was just about to put his daughter, to take a nap. He was like, yo, like his reaction was priceless. I even laughed like after like I walked away after we had a little brief chat. He was like, yo, you serious? I was like, yeah, it's just a gift. I remember you say you like graffiti. And it's the simplest things. I was like, we're fathers, we don't really, that's not a big thing about celebrating or showing our appreciation. And he was like, man, I really needed this. And y'all don't, and if when you come from a place of compassion or empathy, you can feel that shit. You can feel a weight lifting off someone because you show it's like giving things to people is a way of them feeling seen in a way, but it's to the depths of their inner child. So instead of like, you see people give people, I get the cars, the clothes, and certain things and so forth. But when you really start to get to know people and see the depths of them, one thing I've learned about emotional empathy or getting to know myself more is like, you will know exactly what someone needs, even through their ignorance of not knowing who they really are. You'll really start to pinpoint. You'll get divine insight. And that's why I mentioned like how certain things will tell you. Some people don't need money. They say they want it, and it's okay to have it, but a lot of them need rest. And entrepreneurship, again, when you see the importance of rest, people whole perspective will change. They'll get that divine insight. They'll get that intervention. Their bodies will let them know what they can handle. But they've been in things so long to where they'll drag along. Like I'm literally seeing a lady who comes in here doing part-time. Nothing against elders. But she can barely walk. Like, and I'm not going, I cannot, I will not. Some people was like, you don't know what you, yes, bro, when you're fully committed to something, what the fuck do you think I'm doing this shit for? You think this shit is in vain? Why would I create a life towards hustling, towards overexertion, towards my body? Again, a lot of people aren't going to recognize this is something I've learned through the journey. I didn't know how much my fucking body was calling out to me when I learned entrepreneurship. And I was going through that stage of what, again, is perceived as hustle. But at the same time, life was teaching me, slow your ass down. If you don't rest, how you gonna paint? If you don't rest, how you gonna get insight to write? How you gonna get the ideas? How you gonna get the ideas to build this structure? Okay, if you don't rest, how you gonna actually use the money to build to what you're doing? If you don't rest, how you gonna even show up for yourself and your children? If you don't rest, how the fuck, bro? I'm trying to tell y'all, the biggest spell and illusion has been lifted. And that's the fact of not prioritizing rest. I know people who had heart attacks as early before 25. What? Nervous system jacked up. And you don't even recognize that you have a dysregulated nervous system until you actually sit down. Why would I sit here and be a part of a society who doesn't care about my well-being? Now not everybody, but I'm using this as a way of expressing, like, you got people literally, I was telling the guy earlier that's 29, you got people literally angry, upset, bothered because I do not want to go out and do something. Because you don't know my experience. Because you don't know what I've had to heal my body through by being in a car wreck, which was not my fault. My mother never taking me to the hospital, which was not my fault. Again, childhood things that were beyond my control. Not my fault. And I'm supposed to, later on in my years, keep going in a sense of like burning myself out, go get a position, go do this, throw my whole well-being away for a CEO or this person so their business can stay afloat with it. Like bullshit. I'd rather become my own and actually involve and put other people on in a world to realize like, yo, things can happen for you. It may come a little slower than usual, but don't no garden and ain't no forest growing over fucking night. You just been in a cycle of going. And you think all of my paintings being sold or my books selling out and um, you know, all this other stuff that I have going on, I'm just gonna discard it just because I get this contract, this independent contract, or this opportunity to um, make a lot of money and think I'm just fuck no. That shit is only gonna set me up and put me in a position to where how could I pour into myself first and then pour into other people. Going back to where I said I know it didn't make sense to a lot of people, but they don't even know that when I return in their lives, I know exactly what they need. And the reason I say that is like the divine placed that on my heart. Like when I gave that guy that picture, in that moment, that's what he needed. Sometimes people don't even be knowing until later on because their nervous system is not used to receiving. Their nervous system is not used to accepting encouragement. Think about that shit. Some people nervous system is not even used to support emotionally, mentally, and so forth. So they run from it because they've been running from themselves their whole life. There's some people in my life, I know exactly what the divine say. This is exactly what you're supposed to give them. Even if it don't make sense to them now. I know exactly what my mother's been chasing after. I know exactly what my grandmother's been wanting most of her life. I know exactly what the mother of my kids been wanting. Because once you're sitting down and observing, the divine will give you the bigger picture, not just to where you are, but the representation of the characters and people in your life are a reflection of what you see in the world. That's why when I meet those men, it reminds me and encourages me, bro, keep going. You're already here. Because even if they don't accept it, they reject it or not, you're still an inspiration to even realizing like, dang, he did it. I can't believe like, oh, he did that. Like, that's cool. And so, that's the beauty of it. Is when you're realizing you're selected, appointed to actually change the whole trajectory on not just your patriarchal, but seeing the bigger picture, how it's going to actually affect so many men, little boys to come, generations to come. Because honestly, I listen to the men without absorbing it, but I still see the little boy, even if I know that I tell them about my experience, knowing that they may not ever go down that road. And that's why I have to have grace, because what can I do? Nothing. Because it's still their free will. They still have an opportunity. At the same moment, this is why the youth is so vital. Because when I see certain boys getting exposed to stuff, when I see certain men, I realize like, yeah, this is showing me like, this is a trajectory my son could go down. If I really don't focus on myself and my well-being, yeah. Because a lot of it's rooted in abandonment issues, like I've always talked about. A lot of it is a lot of these young boys resent their fathers for not being there. I went through that. That's the father wound. I know what that feels like. And that's a part of like me being a guide in my life to know that how much it's going to remind those young men that so what he wasn't there. This should inspire you to even where now you see the bigger picture to where that day comes if you have children and more so a son, that these things may come up, these emotions, when you are there. That doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up. That doesn't mean you have to feel shame and guilt. Honor it. It has to come up. It's supposed to come up. let that be an inspiration. Let that be the lesson that you not so much you learn, but also realize like you're also your father's lesson too. You also are inspiration to men who do and don't want to see you. Because that's the thing about it. As much as people think that they don't want to see someone, I told you, do is in front of all those words. Do, don't, and can't. CAN. So as much as they don't, they do, because it's like a love-hate thing. As much as they hate the idea of something, the student knows that it can learn from anyone. And a lot of these people, they rather be the teacher. They rather be the teacher but refuse to be the student and realize like you can learn from the youth. You can learn from the fact of like how to hold more grace for them because they don't know. They don't know no better. I told you I have experiences to where I see some people, I don't even know what the fuck be going on with them. But I realize there's something deeper. I see a lot of youth be having girlfriends so young, boyfriends so young, and I'm like, this is guidance. You have to see, if you want to call it the most impurest or unrighteous or the depths of things in the shadow aspect to actually become the light in that shit. That's why I realize like a lot of places where I'm positioned, I still have to remind myself to be the light for me first. Because if I lose myself or get caught up or absorbed in someone else's shit, which again, through my own ignorance and protection, y'all know the answers are the highest good, or sometimes you'll get pulled in direction and they have to remind your ass like that ain't none of your business. Observe and realize either that's something that you are either going to support or there's something that you are going to learn from. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like again, this entrepreneurship has shown me a lot to why I'm really being called on that journey, because it comes with, again, generational curse breaking. It comes with cycle breaking. It comes with things ancestrally that you don't want to know about, but you have to. It comes with the fact of, again, ancestral regeneration, or just ancestral curses that really are gifts. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And a lot of things is where you realize, like, you actually would sit back and see people continue to be fearful of the unknown. There's no age limit where you can start being an entrepreneur or go on a healing journey or do whatever it is. Who made the rules in that? Cause you know how many elders that I've learned in this fucking generation that are so selfish because of like so much pent up resentment and animosity, or how they actually built a lot of things that they only would share with a select few, or they only would do this and they only would do this. This is exactly why a lot of them are dying or transitioning, and this is where this what they call the biggest generational gap, or the biggest wealth transfer is happening. Not generational gap, but wealth transfer is because a lot of them are leaving, and they're leaving in such distress, unhealthiness, dementia, a lot of things to where their well-being wasn't a priority. So guess what? So now a lot of homes are going to be vacant. The tax delinquent list, a lot of unpaid taxes because they never were vocal about it. A lot of them are, a lot of their family and friends have gone no contact just simply because of their fucking bitterness or their anger or their, whatever it is, and just whatever state that they're in, that no one wants to be around them. Or sometimes they end up going through losing everything simply because of their inability to heal, to change, to actually take a different route, to actually listen and learn from other people. Some of them are so fucking prideful they don't even want to listen to the youth and not realize your world does not exist anymore. I see it so much. I see so many elders that are like, oh my gosh, it's wild to see some of them that are so stuck in their ways. You just know what's to come. You know what's about to happen, but simply because they're ignoring, their truth, simply because they don't want to heal. it's so many different things around the fact of a lot of what they don't realize they're doing. They're not preparing the generation. They're actually disposing of them. They're actually neglecting them simply because they feel like their way is the only way. And that's what you're seeing play out politically, in the family dynamics, and so forth. And then you have the supportive cast of even the dysfunctionality and people around it. So this is why a lot of us have to realize that you can only not just save yourself, but those who are willing to save themselves along with you will come and be a part of something that they realize, like, I've watched, I've noticed this, I want to be a part of it. How can we build it? This just like any other movement, any other transition, any other thing in life where something comes along and people, they feel, because it's a frequency thing now. It's not from the fact of generations ago where, again, it was built on deception. And most of the people y'all starting to realize now does not have the best interests at heart for you or your children. I had to observe this shit even through the fact of, like, some of y'all, your partner, friends, people can make money, they can have this, they can have that, but their well-being isn't intact. They don't care at all about the fact of, how they talk about themselves, how they feel about themselves. It eventually, I'm telling you, the dream state for me has been showing so much collectively of people not just crashing out, but it's like you can see it and sense it in the atmosphere of, like, the low frequency, the low vibration, or just the fact of things that have to rise out of people who cannot hide them no more. And it plays out, and they don't realize, like, these are the things that's going to lead them to self-destruction. And everything that they built is literally, I told about the patriarchal. I realized I'm a rebirth of the old cycle or the old narrative. I had to be reborn through the shit, through the ignorance, through the self-abuse, abuse, through the neglect, through the abandonment, having seen it play out through people who were raised by the patriarchal. Because even my father still not being there, that still was a part of the distortion. That still was a part of men who never chose to heal. But I still noticed that even being associated with women who were a part of that distortion, the distorted mother aspect, who supported those men who were distorted in their ways, who were unhealed, who cling to whatever external narrative or cling to workaholic or their money and all these different things, again, away from well-being, away from their spiritual well-being and mental well-being. Because for one, from a father to a daughter, one of the things that is going to be prioritized that I realize is when I actually go out into the world, when I see little girls, how they dress, what they do, so many different things also show me, again, spiritual hygiene is a major part in how a girl presents herself. Not just physically, but how she actually in her spiritual walk, her rituals, day-to-day routine, how she speaks about herself, her well-being. And when you think about intergenerational things, a lot of us, again, have carried things and then are literally living out things that we didn't even were unconscious of, and now subconsciously we're becoming aware of it. That was not even ours. It was intergenerational. I've talked about this, like how my mother, how she navigated through things, through stressful moments. I seen her turn into a little girl, cry, looking for support. But I realized her mom never gave her emotional support. So a lot of her patterns or learned behavior patterns became led to her detriment or led to her self-sabotaging. And I realized this was a pattern. But yet, no one ever knew how to support her through that shit. And then what became my detriment is always being the absorber through that shit as a little boy. Because either one, I had to be there, or either because I had the empathy and the compassion no one else had for her, even through her drug abuse. So even through all of this, I still see the little girl. I still see the bigger picture, and I know exactly what she needs. Just as so many other women in this fucked up society, in this distorted mother aspect, who are operating in it and have no awareness of it. Rest. They just want a safe place to land. They just want a safe place, a secure place, a place to just not only express themselves, but to actually have someone who can reciprocate and actually listen and meet their emotional needs in a way of, like, their emotional traumas or childhood traumas. Because a lot of them never talked about it. A lot of these mothers, grandmothers, never had no one sit with their shit and have someone receive them from an internal space to hold space for them emotionally. It's not just, any man can come along and pay bills. See, y'all missing the bigger picture. Any man can come along and pay this and pay this. At the same moment, I had to recognize through a lot of women, yes, they can provide things, and yes, they can do these things, but they don't realize in their inability to not have taken, after any relationship, a moment to breathe, meaning like a year or more to get to know themselves on an emotional level, mental level, spiritual level, physical level. And a lot of this is important because a lot of them are going to start to recognize that through self-awareness, through healing, that they no longer want to be in a relationship, a partnership, a business, a marriage. Or they no longer want, they'll decide then, with enough being enough, they'll rather co-parent. Simply because so much has went on, or so much to where they're tired. They've ignored so much about themselves for so long to where it's only going to get louder. It's only going to become more painful, because that's all they know is to build and connect with something from an emotional, painful space. And so that's the only way they feel like they can connect with people and do certain things. And so now, a lot of them won't get the clarity until it's too late. Like, again, I've seen people all around here traveling and stuff to where they're there is no, a lot of people don't want to accept, like, there is no saving people. And what that means is, like, that's where the surrenderance comes in, where they say you can't save everybody. Really, you can't save anybody. It's not everybody. You can't save anybody, because some things is all they know. And that's simply because I've met prostitutes. Some people's trauma, some people's things they've been so persistent to where that's the life they choose. That's a life that they want. And even so deep to where that's a life that they feel they need just to survive. And as I'm talking, like, I in a library setting, like, I can see women with, like, a woman with a wig on. She can, like, barely walk, but you obviously know that she's prostituting or whatever. But again, you got people that, like, couples and stuff, that they pretty much enable each other's dysfunctionality and abuse and so forth. They enable it. And that's something that I realized, like, the more you get away from things internally, I've said this before, that you will see it play out on so many different stages or so many different levels, to where you cannot save these people. They have to be willing. That's just like, again, the entrepreneur aspect was not so much it's saving me from financial insecurities or emotional turmoil or the mother wound. It actually was an initiation. That's the beauty of this shit. It was an initiation to actually realize that it was bigger than entrepreneur itself. Because, for one, it did heal my financial wound or insecurities, and that's simply because of the mother wound. It also brought up the father wound with structure, because the mother wound revealed that, the structure that I didn't have. You know, reminding me of the father, or the support system, how that energy played out through the environments I lived, the women that I dated, the people I was surrounded with, what they were enabling, what were they were supporting, what not supporting. Again, these initiations are more than just it's spiritual. I cannot say it enough. It's because it's going to, one thing I realize in spiritual hygiene, or just so many different things, that it highlights, what time is it? That it highlights, it didn't tell me the time. What time is it? That it highlights all of those things. Because for one, your surroundings and insecurities, again, is going to highlight people's well-being. That's mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that's why I always bring up things like the spiritual community, what people enable, what they support. Because think about how people just talk about love and light shit. So you got to realize, like, a lot of these things that are about to collapse, that are getting cleansed out, has a lot to do with justice, that I always tell y'all about. It's because people have been giving people just this false narrative, or this one-sided shit, not realizing that love and light shit is such an illusion to what you're really going through, where the love and light you have to embody. And the only way you can embody that shit is through the dark and hate. That's my perspective on it. Because you have to learn to love the very thing that you hated. Which, if you're insecure, unstable, imbalanced, whatever you want to call it, something, you actually gain the love to, you love to hate that part of yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's the dysfunction. I feel like I said that correctly. Like, that's the dysfunction. This is what you see play out. People actually have grown or become prone to actually harming themselves and other people, escaping substance abuse, harming each other. So this is why you see people who run away from themselves so much so. Oh, I can see. Okay, now I see the time. So much so to where, being that they run away from themselves so much, they never really gain an identity around what it is to be in their own darkness, to actually see who they were. Because once you go through different chapters and levels in your life, you realize, like, I can sit here with confidence and realize, like, dang, I remember that version of myself, or I remember who I associated myself with, or I remember this and this. This is not about a perfectionism. This is about simply coming back home to myself. Coming back home to realize, like, a lot of the environments, the relationships, the connections I was in, even the home environment, when I no longer could associate with it, or could no longer resonate with it, I no longer wanted to even be in the house. It is wild, because when you think about a natal chart, they describe it as houses. They describe it like certain zodiac signs or certain energies that you transit through and so forth represent that in itself. And like, when I'm making this, I have Jupiter. Well, I got to look at the progress. Oh, actually, hold on. I think I still have Jupiter in Cancer progress. I have to look at that again. Because either way, my progress chart, and realize I'm already in that progressing energy. And again, as you progress or move forward, like, I give you an example. How I viewed women from a unprogressed energy or unevolved energy, from a more painful sexual way, to where a progressed aspect now has moved towards now seeing the depths of why their behavior, why they not so much dress, but a part of it is, or why they actually express themselves that way. And again, it's recognizing what the unevolved energy, or the emotional and mental, spiritual immaturity. And that's on all levels, because it ain't just spiritual. It's in the spiritual community too. But it's recognizing to the depths of like, oh, I can possibly put my hand on what probably has happened or is happening to where this is why you display this. And again, it's not about perfectionism. Everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be. Because now I'm still the student and I still have to have discipline. Because again, men naturally ruled by sex, but it's the discipline into elevating and evolving. That's why I said, even the discipline, even where things where I would react to or give my energy to in relationship dynamics, business, so forth, to where the boundaries are now so firm. Because at a time, it's one thing to set boundaries physically. Now I'm realizing and progress, it's one thing now to create emotional boundaries. I didn't even know the importance of that to now to where it's like respectfully, you get to that place where like there's a difference between someone projecting their emotions from a painful or wanting to hurt you because they don't know how to manage it. And where I'm getting at is that's the immaturity in an adult aspect of someone when you recognize like you're too fucking not even just old, but you're at a place where I don't have to tolerate that at all. Them are your emotions. You should know how to deal with them by now. And see, that's the evolution. That's the growth within myself. Because I knew that at a time when I was emotionally impulsive or immature, I would do something similar. I would go on a tangent. I feel like everyone need to know this, and this even from my channels and so forth. But at the same moment, when I look at the child aspect, because the Cancer energy is also the matriarchal, the home within self and external, so you can start to pay attention to the environment. You start to realize, oh, this is why you act that way, but you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to treat me like that. I've had to do that recently. You got to meet. It's not so much, how people say, I ain't going to meet people where they're at. No, in certain moments, there is a moments where you realize, like it took a while for me, because, growing up, depending on the environment, how people words could really affect you if you allow them to. Now it's more so they can, not just much if you allow it, but also the access. That's what I say, the access point. Because a lot of people, they don't know that they can actually remove themselves. Or actually, while you're in the process of something, that's a part of the progression. Doing the inner work while you're there to prepare you for something bigger and better. That's how the energy progresses. That's how you evolve. Because taking on someone else's something or whatever it is basically you're saying, I'm just going to give my power away. I'm not going to go within myself. I'm not going to create a different identity around this, because as long as you're not just in it, because you can be in it and still not do the inner work. But as long as you're in it and then thinking that this is okay, no, it's a way of just teaching in your learning your self-respect and being self-sufficient, because all of these things connect. Like I said, I had to learn through the fact of like, I'm allowing this. This is okay. And I had to reflect back to what the depths of the energy was with not just completing a cycle or cutting ties to the emotional aspect of it. It's more so cutting off to where I know that whatever it is within them or someone else, you won't be receiving supply here. You won't be getting anything here. You might want to go somewhere else and do that. And that's what typically can happen through the situation. When they don't heal or go within, people will, I've seen how people create content from it. But they still do it from a place of running from themselves, because they would rather go somewhere else rather than go within. So that's one thing that, again, is another sign to where spiritual immaturity, emotional immaturity. Or they'll go and smear campaign or tell someone, again, the victim mentality. So that's one thing I've learned through the fact of really doing the inner work, especially when you met yourself deeper. There's nothing about it that is in competition. That's ego. The meeting yourself deeper has a lot to do with the fact of like, it's you and you. It's not you versus them. That took a lot of inner growth and awareness to realize like, Like, I've seen this play out through some of y'all, like, know father and mother dynamics. For my fathers, all that stuff that you realize, like, someone's trying to one up or feel like they have power or they do certain things, or it's just coming from an insecure emotional place to where, again, these transits are going to actually reveal and expose the internal hatred that people truly have. Again, that's the dark aspect. You have to go within to really see what's going on with you, because how much longer are you going to keep this narrative? The energies we're moving into, we're going away from a world of people disguising hate, glamoring all these things, because the only thing that's going to initiate is create more division, but in a deceptive, manipulative way. So as you really start to get to know yourself deeper, men and young men and so forth, there's a surrenderance comes in to where you can sit there and let someone yell, project, say this and say this and say that. At the same moment, there comes a point to where your removal, them no longer having access, certain things just don't move you anymore, to where, again, eventually what ends up happening is that not only will they burn themselves out, but they will have to find another host. They eventually have to find someone else to project onto or do these things to. And again, eventually it will come to a point where it'll backfire on them. It always does. I've seen it play out through my mom, and that's why I say the distorted mother energy. I've seen this play out through countless of people, to where when you done the inner work and shadow work, what a lot of things people, you don't give a fuck no more. You start to realize, like, okay, I realize, like, that has a lot to do with you. That's your projection, whatever. And a lot of the narratives will still play out to where they'll still be living in that having that mask, to eventually it'll fall, because they really haven't met themselves deeper. I wouldn't be able to give y'all and show y'all this shit had I not known what it is to really be with myself without being around other people, or without even being in a relationship with someone for that duration, to even come to this clarity or awareness. It's not to make your life like mine. It's just the insight and clarity to where how a lot of things in your life can become more harmonious, peaceful, and balanced. When you actually realize, in getting to know yourself deeper, you will see how much people don't know who the fuck they are. It doesn't matter what their status, how much money they have, whatever it is, you're going to begin to see the mask start to fall. Because for some people, it's rooted in abandonment, codependency, financial abuse, or financial dependency. Once you really start to realize, like, even if they don't see something, a part of what the divine will give you is the insight in the dream. And you don't even know how sometimes shit is going to happen. Got to give you bits and pieces like a puzzle. It's a game. But what you won't have to do is cut corners or just assume, like, oh, I got to do this and do this because such and such did it. This is exactly why a lot of people, they can get it sometimes even quicker. Sometimes, and so forth. But they would never know what it is to be that person and how to experience it. This is where comparison is a thief of joy. You comparing your life to this person and so forth, and know nothing about the depths of who they really are, what they need to learn, what they haven't learned, what they're still learning. It's so many different parts of it that people ignore. They ignore every day. And so that's the beauty of the clarity too, is knowing that there's always going to be a way out. There's always going to be a way through. There's always going to be something that presents itself to prepare you, to prepare you for something that you assumed that you wasn't ready for, but no, you were ready. Sometimes it takes a little bit more patience. And then, especially when source or the divine is giving you something, this is what I've learned. A lot of what I thought that I was supposed to have, I was actually supposed to see other people go through it. I was actually supposed to see people experience certain things, to see, to observe and see the lesson in it, to where when it was my turn, or when the wheel came back around, then I will actually know what and how to maneuver, just by learning from, you can say, their mistakes, or just learning from what they didn't be attentive to. And I've seen that happen a lot through people just going to get stuff and not really looking at the fine details, or investing into things and not looking at and I've learned through that. So yeah, it's been a great learning experience. And that goes back to, again, the entrepreneur aspect of seeing the bigger picture, like building towards something more longevity, long term. And this is what long term is, something that you're going to naturally go through things that have to have patience and actually build on it more intentionally. And that's why a lot of shit, like you seen a lot of stuff crumble now, patriarchally and so forth. Y'all are about to realize how many men, little boys, seeing the men actually not call out, not support, or any way, shows you where they haven't met themselves deeper, even in their silence. Because you know what I'm saying? Because I know I'm doing my part by simply spreading it here, and at the same moment still talking to some of the youth, and then even in the moment where being an inspiration by allowing them to see me be in integrity and stand up for myself. Because I tell you, there's sometimes where I had to let people know this ain't that. Because for one, you're not going to harm me. It's stuff like that. It's the authentic, not a distorted masculine. It's the authentic aspect that doesn't have to hide. And so I realized, like, a lot of this is now is going to be presented now with, what is it, Jupiter and Leo, because doing all this inner work, yeah, I can talk about it, but now I realize, like, I am being also prepared to actually, like, this is like a hermit. The Jupiter and Cancer is like, you're still visible because you're still expanding, but it's more so like, really, one thing is really going to reveal also with the Chiron and Taurus is like the security. Because a lot of these things, like what Jupiter and Cancer has revealed to me, is how it shows me that in my expansion, I have to go inward as well. Like, I have to learn to, even through things I have no control over, I have to see people who don't know how to manage their emotions, the young boys, the youth, and so forth. Because seeing the Cancer aspect of that through the emotion, through the emotional waters of the mothers, through the home aspect, through the ancestral thing, seeing the similarities, seeing the depths of it, to where I still have to stay stable, because they don't know the importance of going inward. So it's like that's the discipline in this shit. I'm telling you, like, don't ever think I ain't been met with, adversity or some challenges. No, that's a part of, I had to tell someone Jupiter is also the biggest lessons in shit, because it's not so much about the people, it's the influences, it's the energies, it's the influences of being rooted in integrity and authenticity. That's the spiritual warfare of the shield. That's the challenges where a lot of people aren't ready to actually go on that journey, because, boy, a lot of motherfuckers would have been checked out. They would have been checked out. Because a lot of what Jupiter and Cancer has reminded me of, even after crying, emotional stuff, highlighting things ancestral, because Cancer rules that, the mother wound. It's been a lot of things coming up to where I realize, like, now, it not just expands, but again, I tell people, it expands the emotions, the impulse of, like, it expands things for you to actually be able to see, how could I alchemize and transmute this? How could I use this to go to put it towards something else for the bigger picture involved? Because someone's always watching. It's just as much as there are people that are watching for you to stumble and backtrack and shit and so forth, as if you're not human, or you're not going to make mistakes. But it's even the aspect of those that there are supporting energies, there are supporting things ethereally and beyond this shit that immediately gives you awareness, because of the lesson, because of the integration, because of things that that you've done. And again, through that process, this is where it becomes a highlight, where the closest people to you can be some of your greatest lessons. Yeah. Cause sometimes like I be wanting to be like fuck this shit and give up, but then I'm asked to just simply surrender and keep my distance and stay aware and keep my head on the swivel and realize like yeah, that don't mean I don't enjoy life. I make the best of it because I realize like it really, I would tell y'all this before you go like um, things really start to become very aware once you start to see how when people think that they can control something, when they think that they have control over something, that right there shows you a collapse in their foundation. Because one thing about being yourself and being authentic, it will really reveal that. I've noticed that. Like I've noticed like that with a lot of people, like they will like the energies or certain things will make you try to make it believe like, oh, you're not capable, you don't need to do this. No, that's when you keep going anyway because something's always trying to convince you that what you're doing is not possible. Because even with impossible, it says I'm possible. So fuck whatever that is. Because you didn't come this far to be like, oh, damn, I got this far to give up. Nah. And that's why I learned through my progress chart too, accepting the unexpected challenges or no unexpected changes or like shifts um, with grace. I got much more better than that. It's like I've been learning. I lean into shit now to where it's like I'm just gonna let this. You know how you lean into a wave, you on the beach, and you just like I'm just gonna let this wave just, I'm not even. And I learned that through. It just reminded me of a jellyfish that I saw. Jellyfish is a great totem. Like, go with the flow of the current and let it lead you to where you're supposed to go. And me, I know, again, with the progression of the emotion in my chart, like the I forgot what house, eighth house, is it eighth house? Something with Cancer. Learning now to be more of, and I see the importance of it again, observer rather than absorber, taking on other people's stuff because, again, as you walk more into this, things are going to be more highlighted in people that you have no control over, and it's going to remind you again, you can only save self, you can only show up for self, and then balance that between other people. Yo. I gotta learn more now. I gotta go research some more. Peace.